All right, let's begin, Rabbi. This week, the Parshas Selech Lecha, we had a very, I would say, important historical event took place, and it's called the Bris Bein Habsarim, which means that there was a covenant made by Hashem to Avraham Avinu that we are the chosen nation and we will inherit Eretz Israel. And Avraham asked, "Why am I worthy?" He said, "Bama Eida Ki Roshena." How will I know? It seems to be on the surface questioning God's promise. It's a chutzpah. So Rashi on the spot explains that he doesn't chalil v'chas questioning God's promise. When Hashem says to him in Nevuah, it's certain. We want to know what will make me be worthy. In what chus do I have? Why did you choose me? What is so special about me that I should have this chus, that we will have Eretz Israel and so on and so forth? That was the question. But ma eda, not only know, with what ammunition am I coming? With what am I coming to be worthy of this tremendous matana to give us Eretz Israel and all the brachas and all the kedusha, etc., etc. That's what his question was. Not chalil v'chas questioning God's promise. That would be a chutzpah. But his question was, why am I worthy? What am I going? What can I show? The answer was, so Hashem says, okay, take the animals and cut them in half and so on and so forth. This is what we call the bris bein hasarim. Like you have two people who want to make an agreement. So you take something, you split it in half. You take one half and I take the other half. And together it's one, it's like a covenant. You each one has one half. So it's basically taking the animals and killing them and making them a carbon for the service of Hashem. So it's the Kabbalah spirit basically, which seems to be the answer to the question. My door? Yeah. יותר חזק. So the answer to the question was basically taking these animals and splitting them up in the service of Hashem. That's a korban. So the korbanos, they are the sign of the guarantee that our agreement is going to actually be fulfilled. That I made that you're going to have Eretz Israel and so on and so forth. So it's very interesting. On the parsha, there's a small paragraph from the Ramchal, Moshe Kal Matzata, not the Baal Shem Tov that we're learning, but it's connected to this. And he says the following: Bama Eida, Avraham says to Hashem, with what schus, with Eitzer schus? So Hashem answers him by taking the animals and splitting them in half. B'schus ha-karbanos. The schus, we bring karbanos, that is going to make you worthy of the fulfillment of this promise, the karbanos. And that's what you do with the korban. You take the animal and you shecht it, and you split it up, and you burn it on the base of Midrash. You offer it as an offering to Hashem. What does it all mean, this karbanos? What is that, a schus to karban? Take an animal. What's that mean? So he says the following. This is the Ramchal says. So, and you know, if we have to understand everything in the, I would say, the framework of the true, I would say, spiritual world, we have to remember this. We want to understand what the Ramchal is saying. We have to remember that we live in a make-believe world, in a sense. This whole world that we live in is a disguise. The real world, what really counts, is what's going on underneath the surface that we don't see. This is the truth. This is what the whole limit of Kabbalah is all about. or you want to call it the supernatural, it's more than it's natural. It's the truth that's underneath the surface that you don't see. You want to get to the truth, you have to, sometimes dig. It's an expression that we use. We have to dig to go down deeper and deeper until you finally get to the pay dirt. That's where it really is. All the things that are on top are all a cover-up. So what is the basic, I would say, truth that everything is built on? So the answer is the following. When Hashem created the world, don't think about this world. There's a lot that went on before this world came into being. A lot that went into the world. And that had only a spiritual nature to it. It did not take physical form. We have to understand further, Hashem himself is not something which is even describable in any terms whatsoever. You can't even say a spiritual creation. Hashem is not something that is created. Hashem is something which is permanently exists. That is, it's an existence of, I don't know what you say, how would you say it? An existence of existence. I don't know how to explain it, the best words to use. And for some reason or other, which we don't understand, Hashem, as the Arizal says, all of a sudden he had a will to create something. And before that creation took place, in the form that we understand it, moon, the stars, the planets, this globe of Earth, where many things took place beforehand. Many things. Why did it have to happen that way? Very simply. The power that exists in that entity called God is so immense, so overwhelming, nothing can exist besides that. It is anything that comes near it is immediately disqualified from being an existence. It cannot exist with such a power. This is what we say, Ein od milvado. The truth of the matter is nothing else exists except God. That's the truth. We say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That is making a statement of the present state of affairs. Hashem Echad is one, that's it, and there's nothing else. That's it, one. You don't say Hashem is the Rishon, he's first, and then the second, third. We say Hashem Echad, it means he is one, and there is nothing else. Ein od milvado. So, if there's only that one thing, where are we coming to the picture? How are we here? How are we here? So, because Hashem is so, way above our ability to understand what that means, and all of it, we have the words that are given down to us in the Swarm HaKadoshim. All of it, Hashem had a will to create something. Hashem had a will to create something. And what did he create? Did he create the solid world right away? No. Had he created this right away, juxtaposed to him, it would have burnt up. It wouldn't have been able to continue to exist. It would have been disintegrated upon creation. So Hashem made this world come in a very, very long system of decrease, further and further and further and further away from Hashem, until you can get to a point where you can create something physical and it won't be destroyed. It's far enough away from Hashem to be created and still exist. So what did he create in the in-between? From Hashem to this world, what happened in between? And is that in-between still in existence? The answer is, it is still in existence. And that in-between is described very, very, very generally by the system of the spheros. The spheres, the 10 spheres, there are 10 spheros. Everything has 10 spheros which it is made up of, everything. And those 10 spheros are a general term for the entire spiritual world. We put up at 10, and you could say there are various levels, and each level has its 10 too. That's the way it works. In order for our world, for you and me to be here, we have to be, where are we? Remember, we are something physical. We're something physical. And we have to be able to exist in light of something which is so overpoweringly spiritual and holy and indescribable. So we have to be very, very far away, very, very far away from it in order to be able to continue to exist. This is all God's plan. That's why He made it, so that it would work. And He is the super creator, and He knows exactly what He's doing. Okay. So everything in the world really should fit in somehow to that system of the 10 spheros. Everything fits in the world. It's in the 10 spheros. And the very bottom of it all, the lowest level is the physical world. The physical world. Okay. So there's one thing which is maybe even worse than the physical, and that is something which is totally negative. Negative forces. All these things that we have in the world have very good characteristics, very wonderful things that keep them together, keep them alive, but there's always something that's always a destructive force. That Hashem created also. A force of destruction. Because if there would be no force of destruction, nothing would die, nothing could be destroyed. This is, don't forget, when God alone exists, that's all there is God, and God, we have to understand, is the epitome of perfection. Epitome of perfection, no fallacies whatsoever, nothing in any way which is negative. So God created also negative forces. If they exist, and we know that they do exist, there is destruction in the world. It takes place. So where did the force of destruction come from? This is also a creation. Also a creation. And it's something we have to be very careful about because it exists. It's around us all the time. And we have to do things to protect ourselves, not to be influenced by this negative force. This negative form of destruction is in us, and this is why we aged. This is why we aged. If we didn't have this negative force in us, we'd remain the same way all the time. As we were created, we'd remain that way until Hashem says, your time is up. You'll be as young and as vibrant as you were at the very beginning when you were created. But since there is this negative force, the destructive force that's always minusing, it's always taking away, it's destroying, therefore our bodies age, and they are not with the same vibrancy and health that they were when we were young. And eventually it gets to a point where it can't continue anymore. That's what happens when a person leaves the world. It can't continue anymore. It doesn't have the kochel to continue. We have to try to, as much as possible, avoid those negative feelings. And they're always around us. They're around all over. So let's get back now to the 10 basic structures that Hashem created, the spiritual structure that Hashem created. And those 10 spiritual structures can be translated into physical. But take ourselves, for instance, even the human being itself, according to the way the Arizal describes it, is we can be described as a physical representation of the spiritual creations or the 10 spheres. How do we see the 10 spheres in the human being? Very simple. Very simple. You just have to, if one should learn it, you can learn it, you understand it very well. There's a big question in the Svarah of what is the arrangement of the 10 spheres. You can say it starts at the top and goes one underneath the other, all the way down. Kesser, Chochmah, Bina, etc., all the way, one underneath. And the last one is Malchus. The last one is Malchus. But there's others who disagree. It doesn't go one underneath the other. It's in the form of a human being. Like we look, you have in the head here the three top ones. Keser would be the crown at the top. On the right side you have Chochmah. On the second time you have on the left side you have Bina. The right arm would be Chesed. This is Gvura. The torso is Tiferes. The right thigh, leg is Netzach. Left one is Hod. The reproductive organs is Yesod. And then you have Malchus. Malchus is what we are supposed to be giving to. That's something that's on the outside, the recipient. We are active. Who would be the Malchus as far as we're concerned? Malchus would be the first, would be the women. The men give to the women. A man gives to the husband. The woman is the, let's call it, the weaker one. She's the more docile one. You have to have the active man to provide the woman for what her needs are. So that's the representation of the Malchus. That as far as humans are concerned. But if you take it also in countries and lands, Malchus, according to the Svar Makadoshim, is Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is Malchus. It's the recipient. All of the Kedusha, everything that comes down from above, comes into Eretz Yisrael, and that's where it's concentrated on. That's where you have Malchus, that's what you have the kingdom. Am Yisrael, the Malchus of Eretz Yisrael is in Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh, the Beis HaMikdash. That's where the Malchus is. And this is all within the level of the Kedusha. All in the Kedusha, all in the positive. And remember we said, Hashem also created the negative. Where these negative forces get their energy from? What gives them? Hashem created them, therefore they exist. But just human beings have to have reinforcement all the time. We have to eat. We have to be osik in matters of Kedusha. We have to also prime our spiritual side, not only the physical side too. So we are always active. What about the recipient? What about all the negative forces? Where do they get their sustenance from? So the Svar Makadoshim say, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. They get it from the very, very end, the tips, the fringes of the Kedusha. That's where they nurse from. They nurse from the fringes of the Kedusha. The very end, like the strings that are hanging down, for instance, strings from our tzitzis and talis, which are a kadosh, they can attach themselves to the end of the strings and nurse from that Kedusha to give them their life force. And we don't want that. We try to keep them away. That's why when we wake up in the morning, we have to wash our hands. Why? We wash our hands 3 times ultimately, because we're taught that can remove those negative forces from nursing from us. We don't want them attached to us. If we don't wash our hands, when we sleep at night, our neshamas are at rest, so to speak, and therefore there's some kind of a vacuum. It was an active neshama when we were alive and awake, very active, it was holy. And when we go to sleep, it's when it becomes inactive and asleep. So it becomes inactive and asleep, there's room for the negative forces to come in and hover over us or be close to us. So then all of a sudden we wake up in the morning, now we're again active, so they run away. But they're not running away completely. They hang on to the fringes. They still hang on to the fringes. And we're taught, how do you get rid of those negative forces from the fringes? You get into it by washing your hands 3 times alternately, right, left, right, left, right, left, and that takes them away, that takes them off. So that's the end of the Malchus, the negative forces nursing and getting nutrients from the positive forces from the Kedusha. That also applies to Eretz Yisrael too. Eretz Yisrael is the land which receives all the Jews coming to Eretz Yisrael, all the Kedusha coming in here. It's the holiest of the lands. That is considered to be like the lowest of the Smiras. It's something which is solid, physical. It's a land, it's earth, but it's of Kedusha. And since it's the lowest level, the negative forces also get their nutrients from Eretz Yisrael. The negative forces in the world get their nutrients from Eretz Yisrael. What can we do? What can we do to stop that? We don't want to give them. this nutrients that they're getting. They're sucking away from the kedusha, like the negative forces in the morning are sucking away from our fingers. We don't want them attached to us. We wash our hands, that gets rid of them. We go to a mikveh, that gets rid of them. How do we get rid of the negative forces from Eretz Yisrael? The answer is, this is the question that was asked in the parsha. Abraham asked, you want to make a bris with me? What will I know that I'll be worthy, that this bris should be mekuyam, that this promise that we're going to have Eretz Yisrael, we're the chosen people? How do I know that I have enough zchuyot to make this come true? The answer was, bring the animals, split them in half. In other words, what is it we're doing? Korbanos. We're taking from the physical and we are offering it to a service of Hashem, taking the physical and elevating it to service of Hashem. The korbanos is what protects the physical from being nursed from by elevating it so they can't get to it. In the morning when we wash our hands, we don't elevate anything. We just wash it to get rid of the tuah from our hands. Because we wash our hands, but when you can't wash Eretz Yisrael, what are you going to do? Wash Eretz 3 times? You can't wash Eretz Yisrael 3 times. What can you do? You take part of Eretz Yisrael, that which grows in Eretz Yisrael, that which lives in Eretz Yisrael, the animals, and you offer them as a service. You elevate the animals, and if you elevate them, they can only, those negative forces only nurse and get nutrients when it's down below at the end of the fringes. But if you take it and elevate it up, they can't touch anything. They can't go there. They can only remain there where they are. Now listen to this, Rabbi. Say this is absolutely amazing. That's what the Ramchal said on the parsha of B'Lamo Eda Shena. He explained why Eretz Yisrael is considered to be like the Malchus, the lowest level. And if you elevate Eretz Yisrael by taking those things which live in Eretz Yisrael, which grow in Eretz Yisrael, then the physical side of Eretz Yisrael, karbonos, you can't take earth. Take earth. Earth is not alive. Earth is dead. But animals which are alive, take them and offer them up to Hashem and serve to Hashem. Then the lower forces cannot nurse from them. Now, understand, what are we doing? What is Am Yisrael doing? What does mankind do when we are mispalah? We said, Al Shlosha Dvarim Ha'olam Omei. The world exists on 3 pillars: Torah, Avoda, and Gilus Chassadim. Avoda really means Avodas HaKarbanos. In order for the world to exist, you have to keep away those destructive forces from nursing. If they get power, they're going to be more destructive. We don't want that. We want to make them less destructive or not destructive at all. What do? Take korbanos and elevate them. Elevate the physical to Hashem, then they cannot nurse because it's too high up. They can only nurse when it's down below. And what does Chazal tell us? Today that we don't have the korbanos anymore, what do we have in place of the korbanos? Tefillah. What? Tefillah. Prayer. Avodas HaTefillah is b'makom avodas HaKarbanos. That's why it's so important. That's why we're learning it. That's why the Baal Shem Tov spent so many writings and hours teaching the importance of tefillah. This is what we're doing. Learning how to elevate ourselves, elevate this world so that the lower negative forces cannot get strength by nurturing from it. If we elevate ourselves with the tefillah, elevate ourselves with the whole world, elevate ourselves for everything we're doing with the tefillah, that keeps the negative forces away. And if they don't have any nurturance, they get weaker. And they're inactive, they can't do any damage because they're not getting the nurturance. They're not getting the injections that they need, that they want. Now we understand how important tefillah is. And tefillah has to be the way it's supposed to be. And the Baal Shem Tov was trying to teach us how the tefillah should be performed so that it's effective, so that you make the proper elevation, so that they cannot nurse these negative forces from it. And therefore, we have tzedakah that keeps the world going. That's what the Ramchal said. So Eretz Yisrael is considered to be like the place, the melting pot where everything comes into Eretz Yisrael. And we have to take part of Eretz Yisrael, the Karbanos, and we don't have Kabbalah today, so we have us. We are here. We offer up our services to Hashem, offer our tefillah. That's in place of the Kabbalos, and that keeps the negative forces away. So it's very, very important. Tefillah, we want to keep all of our negative forces away, all of the terrible things that are going on all around us, and everyone's well aware of it. What happened on October 7th? What happened on October 7th? October 7th, which was Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah, a few days after Yom Kippur. What happened on Yom Kippur in Tel Aviv? On Yom Kippur in Tel Aviv, right before Shmini Atzeres, what happened? There were protests. There were the people that wanted to have separate davening, men and women, and there are people who said, what do you mean? Nothing doing. We don't accept it. And there were fights in the streets of Tel Aviv on Yom Kippur. The result is what? When the negative forces are allowed and they're not, held down like they're supposed to, by having our tefillahs the way they're supposed to be performed in tefillahs, that's what happens. So we have to have achdus, we have to have the services performed in the right way. Anytime you make an offering to Hashem, you have to know how to offer it, and all the laws that are concerned regarding the offering. You just can't just give something like that. When you give a present to somebody, you have to know how to give it, how to wrap it, what to say. So when you give something to Hashem, you have to do it in the right way too. So that's why Baal Shem Tov is teaching us this very, very delicate and very, very powerful tool to keep the negative forces away. And that's what it says, Al Shlosha Dvarim Ha'olam Omei. The world continues to exist on these three pillars, and tefillah is the middle one. It seems to be maybe the more important one, why it's written that way in the Mishnah. Torah, Avodah, Ginus. Very interesting that the Avodah is in the middle. I mean, the middle one seems to be the more important one. Very, very interesting. Let's say Torah is on the right, this one's on the left, and this one's in the middle. So tefillah is an extremely, extremely powerful tool. But it has to be a tefillah, has to be done right. And therefore, we are happy that the Baal Shem Tov is giving us the opportunity to teach us about tefillah, how it should be done properly. Okay.
Rabbi?
Question, yeah.
So you talk about washing away the negative forces, which I'm interpreting as destroying them.
No, just making them unable to contact.
Okay. So I don't know if it was for the Rabbi or something I read regarding Tommy, it's that the way to deal with the negative forces, I'm not sure how this occurs, is to help them to recognize themselves as negative.
Well, it's a higher concept. It's a higher concept. Eventually, that's what will happen. That the negative will turn out to be positive too. They want to join eventually. The Ramchal says a very interesting thing. After the sentence, you can go, just hear the sentence, hear the last sentence. The entire world, just one sentence. The entire world from the beginning to the end can be split up into three. You have the beginning, you have the middle, and you have the end. The beginning was a situation of perfection. When Hashem created the world, He created a perfect world. But there were things that happened in that which made problems that had to be corrected, and the corrections are taking place now in the middle. At the end, after all the corrections are made, the end is going to be like the beginning, and the middle will just fall out. So the beginning and the end, the perfection at the end is going to be joined to the perfection at the beginning, and all the negative forces it could be at that time will join and become positive too. They'll recognize their right position, and they're going to want to join. That's something like you're saying. Could be. Could very well be. Yeah.
I'm just wondering which Ramchal you're reading.
Well, this is called Otzos HaRamchal. This is the same person who wrote Mesilas Yesharim. So they have many of his svarim that he put out, and well, he made an amazing contribution to the world. So Hashem, we're benefiting from it. Okay. Let's now get into our Sefer and the Baal Shem Tov itself inside. And one of the things he discusses here at great length about Baal Shem Tov is, since we're talking about making an offering to Hashem, now Hashem is God. You cannot play games with Hashem. You cannot do it. It doesn't work. The only thing that works with Hashem is the truth. You cannot put on an act. You cannot fake anything. If something is not done properly, it's rejected. That's all. You want to talk to me, you have to know how to talk. You have to know how to dress. You have to know where and when and how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, I'm sorry. That's it. It doesn't work. That's the nature of things. You have a king. You want to get into the king, to talk to the king, you have to know how to get through all of the guards, how to get through, what to wear, when to go, when is a good time to speak to the king. You have to know all the rules and regulations of how to get into the palace to the king. Same thing applies to Hashem. You can't just go and say, here I am, I want to talk to you. You have to know how to do it and not make mistakes. If you make mistakes, you'll be thrown out. Even if you already got in, you can be thrown out too. One of the major mistakes that makes you get thrown out is, while you're talking to Hashem, your mind is supposed to be focused totally on talking to Hashem. And all of a sudden, thoughts come in and they disturb you, foreign thoughts, which are in no way connected to what you're talking about. Hashem says, what are you playing games with me? Out. I'm not interested. Out. You don't know how to talk to me? Please, out. That's what happens when you have machshavos during Shmona Esrei that have nothing to do with the words you're saying. All kinds of extraneous thoughts come into a person's mind. This is one of the things which is a major, major problem. And the Baal Shem Tov addressed this problem in many, many paragraphs. We'll see a little bit of it today. And it's a very, very important problem because it's so, so prevalent. There were a group of Hasidim, I don't remember which ones. I heard when I was young, I heard a long time ago, that they had a minhag to daven as fast as possible. Why daven fast? You can't even think of what you're saying davening fast. The answer was they were more interested in davening fast to avoid any thoughts getting into them. Just finish as fast as you can to avoid any thoughts. That's it. No foreign thoughts should get in. So finish it fast. It's a nice approach, but there's one problem. There's no prayer. It's just a question of saying words remotely and go through it fast and hoping that's going to be good. How can it be good enough? You can talk to Hashem without your mind, without just words. What are you, a robot, a parrot? What are you? You're a human being. You have an neshama. You have to have kavanah. How can you talk to Hashem that way? Just finish it fast to avoid the negative thoughts. You're forgetting the main problem. The main problem is you're not communicating. So I don't know what. All right, I'm not saying any criticism about them. That I heard there was a group of Hasidim that had that shita that they daven fast to avoid negative thoughts coming in. If you daven fast, there's no time for them to come in. All right, they had, assumingly, they had their kavanah Hashem Shamayim. Maybe Hashem will accept it. I don't know. But to me, I don't understand. It's not the Baal Shem Tov shita. That's for sure not. All right, so you have the page in front of you. Let's take a look at Sadi Vav. We did this last time. I'm going to review it again because it's very important to remember. Kasher makil hadam nitpalel, when a person begins to daven. Kisha miyad kisha omer adonai s'masai tiftach hashchina mislabeshes bo umedaberes hadiburim. You have to realize, as soon as you open your mouth and you give yourself that introductory, you ask to Hashem, you Hashem, Savatai Tivta, you open up my lips. The Shechina, where do you get the koach to talk? Where does this koach of speech come from? To say words. Animals don't say words, they make only sounds. Animals make sounds. We are able to form letters and words. Where do we get this from? We get this from the Shechina is giving us this koach. Hashchina is labeshes bo medaberes hadiburim. It's not you or me who are it's talking. This is the Shechina, the koach of the Malchus, that spiritual force which is as close to the humans as possible. That is what's internalizing itself inside us and making these words come out. So it's really a godly power. When we make that statement, should decide to open up my lips and the words come out, it is the Shekhinah itself. It is the presence of Hashem, the lowest level of the 10 spheros of that spiritual world and inside us, and that's giving us the power to talk. And when you realize that and you feel it, you mamish feel it, you have to realize you're standing you have your feet together, you want to address God, you have to realize that you are now being imbued with such a holy koach, call it the Shekhinah. That is what's really giving you the koach to talk. What feeling should you have when that happens? When that happens, if you realize that, what feeling should you have when that happens? He says, when it happens, "V'vaday tipol alav ema v'yira." You cannot go on davening feeling like you did 2 minutes ago. You have to realize you're now being possessed. You're being possessed by, in a sense, Hashem himself. Hashem himself is inside you, giving you the ability to say the words. How do you have the ability to say the words? Where does it come from? Where does it come from? You say, oh, because I want, my will. But you have to understand you're a creation. Why are animals different than you? Why can they not say words and you can't say words? What is it? Because you're more intelligent? No, that's not the answer. So what if you're more intelligent? So you'd be smarter than the animals. But who says you'd be able to talk? Be able to say words and form letters. This is a tremendous, tremendous ability. Where does this come from? This comes from the godliness which imbues us, which is internalized into us, gives us a call. And you have to realize, when I'm saying this morning, I say, the Shekhinah is inside me. And therefore you should have a feeling of awesomeness when you're standing in front of Hashem Davening Shemona Esrei. Now how can you daven Shemona Esrei that way, as these Hasidim did it, do it fast? They can do it fast. You can hardly say the words. Hardly say the words if you realize what he just said. When a person has that realization, that feeling that he is being now injected with the Shekhinah, it's inside him, which is giving him the call to talk. You only can have a feeling of awesomeness. Yirah Shemayim, Yirah Haromos. And not only that, but in other words, Hashem is, so to speak, condensing himself. He's condensing himself and coming. Hashem is the entire existence, everything, the entire world, Hashem. And he's coming into you, little over you, and he's inside you, and he says, the Pasuk in Shir Hashir is a simon to that. It says, "Meitzis min hacharakim mi'osios," as Hashem is, so to speak, looking at you through the cracks, so to speak. That means Hashem is coming through, but he's inside you. And you're going from one step to the other. What is that step? It is hekel means from one letter to the next letter. You hear that? One letter to the next letter, one word to the next word. And every time you go, you move, they want to see if you're still there. Are you fully focused or not? Do you realize that you have the Shekhinah inside you and you're addressing the higher form of the Shekhinah? You're addressing Hashem himself? Do you realize that every step of the way? If you don't realize that, the only thing that you can get is the exit sign. That's it. And then, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, you're an athlete. You just show up at every game, 100% ready to go. Sometimes you had to work through it, right? So, can you be this intense 3 times a day and more, 365?
I agree with you. It's very hard. It's very hard. But one thing is sure. To come in off the street and start davening, you'll never make it.
Right.
You have to come in earlier and sit down and get yourself into the right mindset, realize what I'm going to do and who I'm going to address, and prepare yourself. Then you have a good chance. A good chance. Coming off the street and start davening right away.
But if you do all that, I'm not convinced you get the exit sign. I think, wow, out of all the options today, this guy gonna walk to shul, put on the feeling.
No, you'll get credit for the good things, of course. Get credit for the good things. But if you want to know if your tefillah is going to get in or not, it has to be done right. It has to be done right. if you've got an appointment with some big politician or the king or the queen or the prime minister, and you made all the preparations, when you get into the office, your mind wanders, you talk about something, and he looks at you, what do you want here? What are you wasting your time? What wasting my time?
I don't have the appointment anymore. That's it.
Okay, so, but you do have. We do have. That's the way it is. So if you have this discussion, what we just had just right now, if you have this every single day, well, you don't get up and run to shul and come late and come in the middle. You get up earlier and come a bit before the davening. Maybe you be the first one, maybe the second one. Be the one to turn on the lights. Be the ones that, you're getting involved in the preparation. You want to do it right. And it takes time. That's the way it is. Anything that's important that you have to do, you always need a preparatory period. You cannot just jump into it. Even though you know exactly what you have to do. But nevertheless, you have to have the right frame of mind. You have to be emotionally fit for it also. So that takes time. That's the way it is.
So a daily minion would have 15 minutes of proceedings to nothing already.
Well, that's supposed to help.
Okay.
That's supposed to help. 15 minutes of Chassidus before davening, that's supposed to help. But even after you finish the 15 minutes of Chassidus, you have to sit down for a minute, or at least, while you're walking to shul, start to prepare yourself. What am I going to do now? Who am I going to talk to? I'm going to meet Hashem. You have to already prepare. As soon as you wake up in the morning, this is your goal. I'm going now to talk to Hashem. I have to prepare myself. I have to be right emotionally. I have everything I have to do in order to make it successful. That's the way it is. Otherwise, you get the exit sign. It doesn't go through. Okay. Take a look here at the next paragraph, Tzadi Zayin, what it says. Baal Shem Tov Amar, Allah Hashem, Amar al Masha Amar B'Zohar. In Parshas Pikudei it says, Shedonin es ha'adam b'chol heichel v'heichel. A person is evaluated in every single spot that he comes to upstairs when he's davening. And it also can give you the exit sign, Perush. Ki hadiburim, the words themselves, nikra heichalos. These are like the auditoriums. These are the rooms. Shaseichel shorobahem. The words are occupied by the seichel. The seichel goes into the words. The adam mispalel hu holech me'os laos. Person who's davening goes from letter to letter. Umeteva leteva. Ukeshehu eino kedai. If he's not really fitting to be in that word because his mind is someplace else, megarshin also. They give him the exit sign. They divorce him. Dainu shezokin lo machshavas zara. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? We want to know where these thoughts come from. So you think the thoughts come from because I didn't concentrate. I didn't concentrate before. I didn't prepare myself before davening. And so I still have my mindset from before davening. And I'm involved in all kinds of relationships with people and business, with all kinds of things. And I didn't clear my mind and sit down before davening, give myself a few minutes of time to prepare. And they're still in my mind lingering. So when that was what I say, they creep into my mind. He says that's not really how it happens. What really happens is that you wouldn't need, if you had a choice, you wouldn't want to have these thoughts, disturbing thoughts. But since you do have them, and you are still addressing the king and all his courtiers around him, they look at you and they say, okay, I'm sorry, you didn't make it. They give you these thoughts. They control your mind. You have also something to do with it, but they have control of your mind. They see, if you haven't worked hard to control your mind, they're going to throw in these thoughts that you had beforehand, and that's going to make him a mela, give him the exit sign. Because you did not take the preparation to make yourself worthy of addressing the king. So these thoughts are coming from them. They're going to use your past, your previous deeds that you were doing, or yesterday or the day before, or even today before davening. All these things are things that you have on your mind, from your family, from your business, whatever it is. They're going to throw in these thoughts, and once they throw these thoughts, automatically you get the exit sign because you're not focusing the way you're supposed to. So he says in the next paragraph, what's supposed to be your reaction? Now here, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Person's davening Shemona Esrei, and he has these thoughts. What should be the first reaction when you realize all of a sudden that these thoughts come into your mind and you stop? What should you be feeling? What should you be thinking at that moment when you realize that you're off track? You're not thinking about the words. What should be the immediate reaction? Says the Baal Shem Tov, "Kishenofels lo machshava zara, azay yitboshesh ad ma'od." You hear that? The first reaction should be to a person who has disturbing thoughts, not necessarily bad thoughts, but they're not on the tefillah. There's something else. Immediately you should feel busha, embarrassment. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. I'm standing here supposedly talking to God, and he's listening to me. My mind is someplace else. This is really a disgrace. That's what you should say about yourself. You should be very, very embarrassed. You say, of course, it's 3 times a day. It's hard to do that all the time. If you do it once a day, maybe once a week, I could put a lot of time in preparing. But you're doing it 3 times a day. So 3 times a day, you have to have a preparatory period to make sure you can clear your mind and realize, now I'm going to address Hashem. I got to prepare myself. I got to take all the proper steps, do everything I can to make sure my tefillah is going to be pure and clean the way it's supposed to be. And only address Hashem and not allow all kinds of things to get into my mind. And if somehow it gets in, you should feel I am a disgrace. This is busha. That's what he said. That's the word. Yitboshesh ad mo. Why? Ki dochafu osam mehechal hamelech. It's not only that you had the thought. The fact that you thought is a siman that you have been given the exit sign. It's a siman hashamayim that you have been given the exit sign, and that's an embarrassment. Everybody wants to perform, and he wants to succeed. If you're on a stage and you're doing well, you're happy, but the audience doesn't like you, you're very embarrassed. You have to walk up the stage. It's very, very embarrassing. So he says, you're on the stage. You're being watched by all the malachim, and Hashem's watching you. If you don't do it right, you're going to be given the sign to go out, and that is very embarrassing. You have realized you have been given the sign, we're not interested in what you have to say. Please leave. That's what you have to have in mind. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen when I'm davening. So you have to make all efforts to do it the right way, and it takes time. It cannot be done all of it just like this, walking off the street and davening. Very, very difficult. The Yashuv, so what does he say? Okay, you don't give up. You've been given the evidence sign, but you don't give up. You don't give. What do you do now? Okay, so I'm standing, my feet together. I realize these thoughts came into my mind. That means that they pushed me out. Then I understood what I have to say. What do I do now? Do I sit down? I back up, start again? What do I do now? So he says, first of all, keep this feeling of embarrassment and of humility. Keep this feeling of failure, but you know Hashem is still your Father. Hashem is still your Father. He wants you. He wants you, but you have to know how to do it. And if you didn't do it the first time properly, doesn't mean that he stole you out. He doesn't want you. He still wants you. But it takes time to do it right. So go over it again. What does he say? Ki machshava zara nishno. He even calls, listen to this. The wording that he uses in paragraph Tzadiches is a very, very strong word. Look what he says. Machshava zara hu avera kemo moilid mamzer. Baal Shem Tov's terminology. A thought. You're talking, as you're having a relationship, a union with Hashem. A union. It's supposed to be you and Hashem and nobody else. Where does a strange thought come in? A strange thought come in that's like a strange power. A man and a woman, husband and wife, it's not supposed to be any other forces in there. It's between the two of them, that's it. All of a sudden comes in this strange thought. The Baal Shem Tov terms it, it's nevera, as if you're giving birth to a mamzer. You allowed it to happen. You didn't prepare. You didn't try hard enough. It's like making a mamzer. Very, very powerful, very powerful. So he says, how do you understand this in a more detailed way? So he says, you have two parts to speech. There's sound, kol, and then you have the letters themselves, the words, it's called dibur. A person can make sounds without forming letters or words, just sounds. Open up the mouth and say, ah, so your sound is coming out of your mouth. But you want to take those sounds and form letters and words, that's kol and dibur. That's like the male and the female. Male and the female, the kol and the dibur, the sound and the words. Those two things cannot have anything else strange in between them. And if there is, it's like creating a mamzer. It's like male and female, zochar and nekeva. If a person does have this strange thought, and he's still continuing to talk. This is what happens to most people, myself included. I'm not perfect in this either. I work on it though. But this is what happens to most people. While they're davening Shmoneh Esrei, they're so used to the words, they know it by heart, or if they don't know it by heart, they're used to the words, it just goes through. And while they're davening Shmoneh Esrei, they have these thoughts coming into the mind at the same time. And they wake up 3 or 4 brachas later and say, my brother Shalom, what was I thinking about the whole time? I didn't remember if I said the words, what I said or didn't say. That's why people come after Shmoneh Esrei. Did I say Talmud Matar? Did I say Mashiach Baruch? He doesn't remember if he said it. No. Well, why not? Because you weren't concentrating at the beginning. That he says that's the mamzerus. You're allowing these thoughts to come into your mind, not allowing you to think of what you're doing, and afterwards you don't remember. Did I did it? I did that. I don't remember. So in halachas, there's all kinds of shyness. What to do if you have a suffix? Okay, but the fact that it happens, that's the mamzerus. You're allowing in between the kol and the dibur. You're allowing a strange thought to come in and separate them, that they shouldn't be connected. That's making a mamzer. Okay. Furthermore, he says at the end of that paragraph, said the Baal Shem Tov, V'od yakshav, think further, ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu omer lo madua bosa b'hateva, v'ein ani b'hateva. Why did you come into this word? Why did you say this word when I'm not there? I'm only there when you're there. I come to meet you if you're there permanently. But if you're not there, I'm not there either. What are you doing here? Ki machshavto mishotetes b'dvarim acherim, because machshava is someplace else. It's not with me. Hashem does not give any attention to somebody who's not thinking about it, not focusing on him. So this is a very, very powerful thing to remember. It's a very, very big help. Tomorrow, today, the daven mincha, daven ma'ir. Come 10 minutes earlier, sit down, prepare yourself, say to yourself, I don't want to create any mamzer. I want to talk to Hashem. I want him to listen to me. I'm spending the time, I'm going to shul. I could be doing other things, but I'm offering a service. This is the Chabad. This keeps the world up. This keeps the world intact. I want to do it right. I want Hashem to accept it. I don't want to make it mamzer. And then if you're serious about it, you do it right. And you have to realize when you're davening, you have to have this, I would say, humility, but also a tremendous amount of simcha. Very, very frustrating. To feel simcha, to feel a feeling of content. There could be nothing greater than your communication with Hashem. You're happy with Him, He's happy with you. And you should feel His simcha, and therefore feel very relaxed. At the same time, the humility. Of course, the humility. Who are you to speak to Hashem? All of these things are working together, but they require a preparatory period. You have to come before the davening, a few minutes earlier, sit yourself down, prepare yourself mentally, and then start to daven. That's the way to do it. Not to come off the street and, if you're late, it happens. But generally, you have to make an effort and a mental note. Whatever davening is, 1:45, I got to be there 25 to. I got to be there 15 minutes earlier. I want to prepare myself properly so that there's no mamzerus as a result of my tefillah. So I'm not giving the exit sign. I came, and they're not going to listen to me anyway. What's the point? You want to do it so they listen to you. You want to have success. to have success, you have to put in time to prepare for it properly. Okay, that's it for today, everyone.